Hey everyone, welcome back to Elemental Cartomancy. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the old classic of tarot spreads, the Celtic Cross. Okay guys, so there's obviously lots of versions of the Celtic Cross, isn't there? And who knows, maybe further down the line I'll make, different videos on different Celtic crosses, but the one that I definitely use the most is the one, from our Queen of Tarot herself, Rachel Pollack. It's the version of the Celtic cross that she sets out in her book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be taking it from. Mostly. There's one of the positions where, well, we'll talk about it as we come to it. So what I'll do first is I'll just put the cards face down on the table, and I'll talk about what the position meanings are, and then we'll turn them up, just to give you a wee kind of example. So the Celtic Cross, I think it is a classic. It's really good for just any kind of reading, really. I've found that where I've been asked questions where I'm not really sure, like there's maybe like different aspects to the question. Maybe there's, it's one subject matter, but within it there's several questions. For me, the Celtic Cross just seems to be amazing. It just hitting everything, you know. It just seems to be able to bring up the answers that you need for everything within the subject matter. It's a good all-rounder, I think. So it's a spread that I would definitely recommend, for a multitude of different types of readings. What I find that it is good for just thinking about the positions that we have is where someone has got an issue and they're wanting to look at why am I here? What has caused me to be here and how do I move on from here? You know, I am. If someone's not so interested in look, if they know how they've got there or they know the past events that have got them to where they are, and they're more looking at like, right, going forward, what actions do I take? What actions do I not take? Then I would maybe recommend like the 10 card spread that's set out in the Raven's Prophecy. If you look back at this mini series, this My Spreads mini series, there's another 10 card spread video, and that's it's the 10 card spread from the Raven's Prophecy, and I would say that it's excellent for that. But for the types of readings where it's like, right, I find myself in this situation and I really want to take a deep dive into it. I want to know, why I'm here, what has caused it, what's the basis of it all in the first place, what kind of things have happened in the past, an all-round look at the situation, then this is your lad. Okay, so just give them one last wee shuffle for luck, and let's kick off then. So the first card in the Celtic Cross, um, Rachel calls it the inner. And what she means by that is it's basically like, deep down in your deepest of selves, what is your attitude to the matter? Um, you could think of it as like your kind of, at your heart, deep down, how are you feeling about the matter? What energy are you putting into the matter? Um, from your deepest self. And that makes sense when you think about the next card, the crossing card, which sits across it like this. And that is okay, the outer. So how are you manifesting those deep feelings, you know, into actions? So the first card is like, how do you really feel about the matter deep down? The second card is, right, what energy are you putting out there? What actions are you taking? What are you saying about it? What on the surface level, what are you putting into this? Now, right away, these two cards can be very telling. So if you're reading for someone and these two cards are conflicting, if they're like stark opposites or, if there's something really different about them, then you can look and you can say, right, okay, well, I can see that this is how you really feel, you know, but that seems to be at odds with how how you're actually acting. And that right there's a conversation starter. You can speak to your questioner about why they think that might be. Why do they not feel like they can act from their deepest self within? That kind of thing. Okay, so those are the first two cards. Now the third card is one of the key cards in my opinion in this spread, and that is the basis card. Okay, so I say this is a good spread for if you're really wanting to kind of get to the meat of the matter, find out how it's all started, and this is a good card for that. This is the basis. So where is it all coming from? What overall, what the hell is happening here? What is it that's kicked the sequence of events off that's led to where we are? All right. The fourth card, which sits behind the first two, whoops, is the past. Okay, so this is past events that are kind of a recent past if you want to look at it that way. Doesn't have to be recent in terms of time, but we're looking at past events that are still feeding into the present. Okay, so events that have happened in the past that are directly affecting or have directly affected what is happening now. The fifth card, and this is the one where I might, depending on the reading, I might change it. In 78 Degrees, Rachel calls this a possible future. Okay. Um, what I find quite helpful sometimes is to look at this as what future the person is aiming for. Okay, so aims, I suppose, could be the point in this card. In some Celtic crosses, you'll see the top card as being the kind of conscious. It's where the head is. It's what you're consciously trying to manifest. Okay, but I mean they're not mutually exclusive. The things that you're aiming for are always going to be a possible future. Um, but yeah, anyway, so that's kind of how I tend to treat that card. And then the next card, the sixth card, is the near future card essentially. Okay, so with the way that things are going right now and where we are at the moment, what is happening next basically? What's coming up next? What kind of immediate direction is this situation going in? Okay. Okay, so the next four cards, as you'll know, they form the staff up the side here. Okay, now I'm going to have to kind of layer them on top of each other just to kind of fit them into the screen. So the seventh card is at the bottom here, and this is basically what. So this is like the querent themselves and how they are affecting the situation. Okay, um, it should link in quite closely with the first two, particularly the crossing card. All right. Um, but it's like with the actions that you're taking, with your current attitude, how are you affecting the situation, the question, the thing that we're looking at, that we're asking about. The next card, card number 8, is how it's the environment card. Okay, so this is, how you are putting out and affecting the situation. Sorry, just hit the microphone. The eighth card is how is everyone else and everything else affecting the situation. So if you imagine the situation, the question is sitting in the middle. Seventh card is how are you projecting onto that? And the eighth card is how is everything else projecting back onto that? Okay. So the environment can be talking about the people around about you. It can be talking about external, greater matters that we have no control over, such as the weather, for example, such as, global events. All of this kind of stuff all comes in the eighth card, the environment card. The ninth card is like the hopes and fears card. Okay, hopes and slash or fears. All right, you'll be able to tell looking at the card when it comes up what kind of thing you're looking at. The only thing that I would say that Rachel kind of goes into in 78 Degrees, quite often we tend to fear our own success, and that's basically because we fear change. And for that reason, quite often your hopes and fears can be the same thing. Because we fear our own success, the things that we're hoping for can actually give us the fear, all right, because it represents change, and we tend to resist that quite strongly. So that's just something to bear in mind um, for when this card comes up. It might be something that you want to kind of chat to your questioner about. And then the last card is basically the final outcome card. Now I'm not really one for believing in fixed futures. I think that we've all got, a choice. Our future is affected by the choices that we make. Um, so I think that this is kind of, if you take into account all of the other nine cards, where is it going? Now, if this turns out to be a pretty shit future, then you know that you need to rethink what you're doing. You need to, put together a different game plan altogether in order to achieve perhaps the possible outcome, um, or the thing that you're aiming for. You know that there needs to be some serious thinking done. Okay, so those are all the position meanings, and what I'll do, and I think I've done it for the rest of the videos in this mini series, but I'll go back and check that I have. What I'll do is I'll put the position meanings in the description, and that way you can just see them at a glance if you're just, if you're not wanting to watch through the entire video to see what they are. So let's have a look at this. So I'm going to put that to the side for now. The first card we said was the inner. So this is the deepest, most feelings, and we've got Dreamer Queen, Gift of Reason. Now Dreamer Queen is kind of like the Queen of Swords. Okay, so this suggests a really kind of logical, intellectual view on the matter. It suggests a really good balance actually between that intellectual, grounded, down to earth air element where we're, applying these, the logical thought to the matter, the conscious thought, and the element of water, which is like it's our feelings, it's our heart, it's messages from our unconscious. So it suggests quite a healthy balance between the two. The Queen of Swords or the Dreamer Queen is someone who's really kind of um, got that kind of that fine balance quite. They've got it quite well balanced out. So this is the kind of inner self. So that suggests that, and we never really came up with a sample question, but let's say the question is, well, the kind of example that I used was it's good for if we're asked, this is the situation and I really just want to take a deep dive into it. I want to know how I got there, right? So shall we say, what if this is like a relationship reading then? So if someone comes to you and says, I feel as though I'm in a bit of a difficult spot with my relationship right now. Not really sure why I am where I am. Can we maybe have a good look at that and, if there's any advice there for me? So there's our sample question. So the Dreamer Queen suggests that there's a balance there between the really kind of logical processes of the mind and the really kind of emotional processes of the heart. Now, in everyday life, I would say Dreamer Queen is a good balance to have. Now, remember that in an emotional situation, sometimes the Dreamer Queen can come off a bit cold, okay? She can come off a bit distanced, and that could be a possible thing that you might want to point out to your questioner. You might want to say, look, the way I'm looking at this, it's not like you're doing anything particularly wrong. You just might want to think about how you're connecting with your partner and how you might be coming across to them at the moment. Is it possible that they could be left feeling a bit of a bit frosty? Could you be coming off a bit chilly? And that can then kick off some sort of conversation. Now, that is the kind of deep down. Let's look at the next one. So for the crossing card, for the kind of outer, for how we're manifesting, we've got the chariot. Now, the chariot talks about strength of will and gaining power over. So usually it's two horses, but in this deck, it's one horse that's kind of got two sides to it, and I adore this depiction of the chariot. Um, so the chariot is supposed to make us think about having that self-control, having that balance between our responsibilities to, the greater good and the world as a whole and everyone else that relies on us. And to ourselves, to our desires to follow in those things that make us happy. So this actually, I mean, really looking at, thinking about the question that we've asked, right? The example question, I don't see massive problems here. This isn't a relationship that gives me cause for concern at the moment. To me, it's like maybe deep down, the person feels like the dreamer queen. Sure, they've got that kind of that that watery element, but there's also a bit of air. So there's just a wee bit of coldness that they're feeling deep down. Maybe just a wee bit of a disconnect. Maybe they've got a fear of um, ending up alone or something like that. But how it's manifesting seems to be this kind of balance. So it does. It seems to be this kind of very driven by willpower, very balanced as to, although you might be feeling a bit um, as though there's a bit of a disconnect in terms of how you're actually, you know, manifesting your actions, putting that energy out there. It seems to be very balanced. So it does. So I'm not immediately concerned by what we're seeing in the first two cards. All right, we've got that nice balance there. Let's have a look at the next card, which is the basis card. Okay, and this might give us an idea as to why this person is coming and asking this question. So we've got Beth. Okay, so this suggests that there's been a massive shift. Um, there's been a big change to the dynamic in the relationship. And that is what has led to this kind of to the question essentially. Okay, now it could be literal. It could be that one of the couple or one of the people involved have lost someone, and that's had a big impact on them. All right, and a big impact therefore on the relationship as a whole. But it could also be something like, for example, has someone lost a job? Have you moved house? Have you Are you looking at having a family? Are you looking at extending? There could be a whole variety of things that this could mean, but it suggests that the thing that's basically kicked all of this off is a massive shift, a massive change in the dynamic of the relationship. Okay, let's see what the past events has in store because I'm curious to see whether this is going to shed light on what this shift was, what this change was. So we've got Dancer 4. Now this is like the Four of Cups. And the caption that we have here is vain reflection. Whatever this change was, it seems to have led to one of them being more concerned about themselves than the partner, than the other one. It seems to have just led to this feeling of being fed up, you know. The relationship isn't satisfying them as much as what it used to. Okay. And that seems to be what's led to the question. Now, it could be that this is your questioner that feels like this, and that's why they're coming to you for help as to what's coming up and how do I change this feeling. Or it could be that this is the partner and that the questioner is picking up on this feeling. And the depiction, I know the camera zoom isn't the best at the moment, but in the depiction we see one person who seems to be kind of staring into the water, staring at their own reflection. There's this real narcissism about the card, to be honest with you. And then there's the kind of partner in the background who's trying to get their attention but can't. So there does seem to be a disconnect between the two. Seems to be that it's come about from a massive change. Okay, now let's look at the next card, and this might give us a clue as to who is who here, as to who is the questioner and who is the partner. So the aim that we have is Warrior 9. Okay, I'm starting to feel as though it's our questioner that's that's just feeling that disconnect, that doesn't really feel as turned on by the relationship as what they used to. Um, and that would certainly kind of, if we kind of look more at the Dreamer Queen, that kind of coldness that she can sometimes represent and embody, that might be what's coming off to the partner. That might be what's kind of leading to this kind of a this disconnect. Now with Warrior 9 coming up as your, a possible future and or the kind of aims and what the questioner is working towards, there's this real defensive feel from it. The figure in the card has got their wings wrapped around herself. Furthermore, they're kind of they've surrounded themselves by an elemental ring. Okay, so they're putting up some major barriers against a partner. And the key word in the card is guardian. So there's something that's, that this person feels as though they need to protect themselves. All right, where they're aiming for, the direction that they're going in, is putting up all of these barriers. So if they truly want this relationship to work, then they're going to have to change something, because what they seem to be aiming for, now this could be something they're consciously aiming for, or it could be, you ever get that situation where, you're taking actions, but you've not really thought about the long-term outcome. You've not really thought about the end game and where everything's leading to. It could just be that the person hasn't really thought that far down the line. They've not thought about, what they're doing right now. How is it going to end up? So yeah, so we seem to be aiming for this Warrior 9, which I don't feel as though that's where we want to be in terms of the relationship. So let's have a look at the next card. So the next card is kind of what's coming up next. What have we got in essentially the immediate future? Let's get the Hermit. Okay, so this to me suggests a time spending time alone. Now, I know that quite often we'll read the Hermit as being more of a kind of uh, not so much a physical isolation, but more of a kind of emotional and psychological isolation. It's the kind of going within in order to find the answers within yourself. But given that we're talking about a relationship, in order to achieve that emotional and psychological isolation, um, to me, this does indicate that the next step is they're going to be spending some time alone. It looks like they're going to be taking a bit of a break in the relationship, just in order to find themselves and just kind of come to terms with, what do I actually want to get out of this? They need to ask themselves some serious questions, especially our questioner. All right, they need to do some soul searching and think about the actions that they are taking and where they're expecting this to go. All right. And that this Hermit card would indicate that they're going to get the opportunity to do that. Um, if I was going to go with my intuition, I would say that there's going to be a bit of a break. They're maybe going to spend some time apart in order to find themselves. Seventh card, what action, what energy is the Querent putting into the situation? We've got the Star, all right. Now, it's interesting because this particular Star card, if you look at it, she has these massive, big, emotional eyes. I always find this to be quite an emotional card. Um, the star is associated with the zodiac sign Aquarius, which is an air sign, you know, um, which kind of can link back to it's Aquarius is an air sign, but aqua means water. So it's kind of sometimes I like to cheat a bit and think of Aquarius as being air with a wee mixture of water, if that makes sense. So it's perfect for the Queen of Swords. So we've got two cards that are kind of, at least astrologically or elementally, they seem to be matching up with each other. Um, but this would suggest a lot of emotion has been put in, because like we've got this fire, we've got these big emotional eyes. So although, the first card might have indicated that deep down the person was feeling, you know, really kind of relying on the kind of logical processes, and putting that energy into it. this suggests to me that how this is manifesting and how they're kind of manifesting their energy into the situation is in quite an emotional way. Now, that's not always a good thing when it comes to a relationship, of course, because quite often what ends up happening is this manifests itself in quarrels and arguments, and fights. And quite often when that happens in a relationship, especially when there are these kind of feelings of, a lack of surety, quite often it leaves you thinking, like, how did that argument even start? What even happened? What was the point in that? I can't even remember what it was that kicked that off or what we were arguing about. Do you know what I mean? So this is the feeling that I'm getting. I'm getting a lot of emotion being put into the situation, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily a good thing. What about, so this is where we get to have a nosy at the partner, all right? And we get the strength card. So this card associates to Leo. Quite often we look at strength as the kind of battle with the ego, all right? It's learning to kind of control those aspects of yourself. It's having self-confidence, having enough self-confidence, but not too much. Um, you know, like kind of taming your ego down, or raising it up if you need to. If you're maybe a bit, if you lack self-confidence, then maybe you need to raise your ego up a bit. You need to raise your self-confidence up a bit. And we've got this big fiery dragon in the card. So I mean, well, so far we've been looking at our questionnaire, and to be honest, if I probably wouldn't be saying this if there was a real live questionnaire right in front of me, but I feel as though they're coming off maybe a wee bit cold so far, and I'm feeling as though I'm wanting to ask them to take a serious look at, you know, where they want the relationship to go. But of course, it takes two to tango, and I suppose we can now see how our questioner's partner is contributing to the situation. There seems to be a lot of fire, a lot of ego being contributed here. Um, don't get me wrong, the strength card is quite often a powerful card with really positive messages. Um, but in the relationship, just given how things are, I'm just not sure if I'm getting a good feeling from what this represents, for that partner. Um, hopes and fears, make it eight. So this is like the Eight of Pentacles. Now, the keyword here is emergence, and this is a really nice card, especially when you look at it alongside the Seven, the Maker Seven, or the Seven of Pentacles, because in the Seven we see the person basically creating this space, and now in the Eight we see that they've created it and they're manifesting. Something is emerging. Whatever the kind of magical process that we see happening here, it's been created and it's now happening. Um, so I suppose there's the hope that, you know, clearly we can see that both people still want to work on the relationship because there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion involved. And you don't tend to get that unless there's still something worth fighting for. All right, so there's the hope within your questioner that they can do the work and that they can make something of it. All right. But I suppose at the same time, there's always that fear that, with the Eight of Pentacles, when we think about, like, for example, the Rider-Waite-Smith Eight of Pentacles, for me, there's an aspect of it where it represents, churning away, doing the same thing, business as usual. All right. The Queen doesn't want to just keep things keep going as they are. There's something needs to give, something needs to change, and there's maybe a bit of a fear that it's just going to kind of keep going and going and going, like trapped in this endless loop of arguments and just feeling the disconnect. The final card is the final outcome card, and we do have Temperance. So we start to see some of that balance. We start to see the balance between the fire and the water, the passion and the emotion. I see this very much as achieving this balance between the two. So there is hope for them. There is the possibility that they can manifest this emergence that we see and the hopes and fears, and just get this beautiful. Um, I was going to say symmetrical, but I mean balance isn't always symmetrical. It's about each contributing what they have to contribute. Um, in this particular depiction, the angel has a heart on their chest, which is, it's nice to see in a relationship reading. We see, in fact, we actually it looks like a continuation from Make It 8, because we have the stone circle and the this, I suppose this looks like the sun to me. And then within Temperance's, I take it this is like the dress, we have what looks like maybe a different stone circle, but we still have this kind of solar energy here, this fire energy, and this kind of worship. So you really get this feeling of having achieved something. Okay, so there's a lot of hope for the relationship. Um, I think it's just going to take work. It's going to take for them to actually communicate and let each other know how they feel without getting at each other's throats, you know. Um, so yeah, is there anything else that we can say about this? So I think what I would be saying to the person, if I was going to start having a conversation then, and bearing in mind, this is all very one-sided. I'm just kind of making up the story as I go along. But this is where you can have a real conversation with your questioner and say, just get their point of view, and you can look at, what they're saying. How does that reflect in the cards? I think one big advice that we can take here is that, the direction that things are going in is the hermit, right? And that might not seem, when you're asking a relationship question, that might not seem like a good direction to go in. We don't often like to see things go into a place where people are feeling isolated and alone. But given that it does seem to be then leading on to this balance, this temperance, I think that we can say, it might be a good thing to spend some time apart. Maybe not necessarily where you're like moving, splitting up and moving out, moving to different, living in different places, that kind of thing. Maybe not as severe as that, but just kind of create a bit of distance so as that you can both have your time to think and feel the way you want to feel and work out just within yourself where you want this to go. It does seem to be going in the right direction eventually, but there's short-term pain for long-term gain. Okay. So anyway, that was the Celtic Cross as per Rachel Pollack, and 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Wisdom. An absolutely fantastic spread. I can't, you know, speak highly enough about it. I would definitely encourage anyone who's not got this book to get it. The audiobook is now out on um, Audible. I've got it. I've listened to it all now. It's absolutely amazing. So definitely get a hold of it, and have a wee listen when you get a chance. So that just leaves me to say thanks very much, guys, for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Again, I'll put the position meanings in the description down below, for anyone who wants to give this a go and just wants a quick reference point. But until next time, take care, everyone, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.